Um, and we've got the green light.
Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing today?
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I was just I've been in contact with Deb for a while now through Georgia Transplant Foundation. I actually reached out to her to become a mentor for the program. You know, when I was sick in the hospital, I had a mentor who came by the hospital and checked in with me on a regular basis. And for me, I just found out that it helped me a lot as far as just talking to somebody who's been through the same situation that I was in. You know, I got ask him a lot of questions about how he dealt with stuff, how he dealt with different issues, how long his wait time was. And, you know, I just related that to what I was going through. He's a big help. I still talk to him today about just how he's progressing on in life. He does the same for me as far as checking up on me. And so I'm just glad that Deb gave me the opportunity to, you know, to speak tonight. So I know just a little bit about my background. I was born in England, you know, United Kingdom. I'm the oldest of four boys. You know, I lived there for 5 years, went to, you know, started elementary school there, and then my family and I, we moved to the Middle East, a country called Oman, which is about 3 hour drive from Dubai, actually. And then a lot of people may not know where Dubai is. It's in the Middle East, a lot of desert, so it's very hot in that area. And so went to private school over there as well for about 5, 6 years. And again, from there, my family and I, we moved to Atlanta, Georgia in January of '99. That's basically where I started my football career. You know, growing up, my brothers and I, we played a lot of different sports and excelled at them as far, you know, as long as the academics as well. And, you know, when we moved to Atlanta, you know, we kind of stopped playing all the other sports and focused on football in school. And, you know, fast forwarding to high school, you know, became pretty good at football and it earned me a full scholarship to Clemson on the athletic scholarship. So as I'm going through Clemson, everything is turning out good. I'm excelling in the sport, excelling in the classroom. And then one day during the season, I'm having trouble breathing. You know, it was not normal for me. I was just running out of breath very quick. And I just knew something wasn't right. You know, I met with the team trainer. He advised me, let's, you know, just go to bed early, rest on it, see how everything would be the next day. The next day came and the issues were, you know, were getting worse. So he referred me, we actually drove about 45 minutes to the bigger hospital in Greenville, South Carolina. And, you know, we ran some tests and it just found out I had a heart abnormal. My heart was not functioning in the normal level. He diagnosed it as a weak heart muscle and enlarged heart. So from that point, he referred me down to Emory Hospital, Emory University Hospital, where I went and got a second opinion. And at that hospital, they did more tests in depth and just kind of, you know, evaluated me more and basically diagnosed me with an enlarged heart. Enlarged heart is, I noticed that's very common for athletes. And you know, obviously it was not news that I wanted to hear. You know, my whole life I was always known as probably one of the better athletes in any sport that I was doing. So for me, it was, you know, as a kid, you know, once you start playing football, your dream was to go to the NFL. You know, so getting that scholarship to Clemson was, you know, another step in that direction. You know, so once I found out I couldn't play anymore, my dream, you know, I was devastated. You know, I became depressed. You know, there's not a lot of other things I wanted to even do at the time. I just wanted to get back on the football field. Um, so you can, it was maybe about 2, 3 years. I was still, my main focus wasn't even school. You know, I was dropping bad grades in school, failing classes, getting D's, and it just wasn't acceptable because I was more focused on getting back to school and getting back on the team. You know, so I would drive myself to the hospital just to get tests done to see if everything was getting better. I would obviously lived a more healthy lifestyle, and every time I go back, it was still bad news. You know, you're still not strong enough to play. You still can't play, and that's the last thing I wanted to hear. I want to say actually, my family, they wanted me to basically stop going to school and just go back to Atlanta and just focus on my health. But me being, I was stubborn at the time, I didn't want to leave Clemson. I made some of my best friends. I wanted to stick around the environment, even if it wasn't playing, because in my head, I always had the possibility that I was going to go back and play again. And as the years went by, nothing happened. Nothing got better. Everything got progressively worse, actually. And it got to the point where I reached my senior year, and I just, I gave up basically, and I just, okay, football's not going to happen anymore. Let me just focus and get my academics back on track. And it took some time. A lot of my teammates, a lot of my friends that I was close with, they all graduated up to maybe a year before I did. And luckily, on the athletic scholarship, you're granted 5 years of school that they'll pay for. So I was down to my last year where I had to basically bring up my GPA. So I buckled down. I talked with some counselors, and they just told me, this is your last chance. If you're going to get your degree from Clemson, if you don't get it this year, then you're going to have to pay. Also, I didn't want to pay, so I just buckled down, and by God's grace, I overcame it and graduated from Clemson. Once I graduated from Clemson, I still wanted to be around football as long as possible. So one of my former position coach actually connected me with one of his old teammates from his high school and gave me my first coaching position, which was in North Dakota. I'd never been that far north ever. So I took it. Obviously, I was excited for the chance. I got up there, and it was just a culture shock for me. It was end of September, early October, and we already were receiving a foot of snow, 2 feet of snow. And up there is different from Atlanta. Atlanta, you have some ice here. They canceled the whole city. They shut the city down. Up there is 2-3 feet of snow, and people are still just traveling around like it's nothing. But I was just happy to be around football again. So I coached in North Dakota for 1 season. Then I moved on to a school in Virginia. I coached there for 1 year. After Virginia, I got another opportunity and coached at a school in Indiana. Indiana was probably my most enjoyable experience. One of my closest friends was actually playing pro ball up there, and so that was an easy choice for me. I got to hang out with him a good bit, and vice versa. We're both happy to be around each other again. It's the first time I'd actually seen him since college. So I was up there for about 1.5 years. School is called Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology. It's one of the top engineering schools in the nation, and got to meet a lot of good people there. And like I said, I was there for 1.5 years until I got my first major coaching job, which was at a school in Tennessee, which was called Sewanee, University of the South. I ended up being there for about 4 years. That's kind of where I settled down and knew, okay, this is the career that I want to be. Even though I'm not able to play, football was basically keeping me involved with the game. My younger brother was actually playing football. Two of my younger brothers were also playing football, so I kind of was living through them. I was basically coaching them from my phone. I would talk to them every day before they had a game and just encourage them as much as I could. And they understood the same way. They knew how much it hurt me that I couldn't play, so it also fueled them a little bit to kind of carry on that tradition in our family. So I started, my 4th year in Tennessee. I started having symptoms again. As far as I wasn't able to keep an appetite. I was getting tired a lot sooner than normal. I just wasn't motivated to do anything anymore. And from that point, I actually stopped coaching there because I told myself I just needed to lay down in the bed and just rest as much as possible. So it was around February 2017 or so. I was actually going through Atlanta to go to one of my friend's weddings that I was a part of. So I stopped in Atlanta, saw my mom and my brothers, and everything was fine. I continued to go to the wedding, had a good time at the wedding. And luckily, we were on fall break or spring break, sorry, at the school I was coaching at. So I had a couple of days where I could kind of go back to Atlanta and spend some more time with family. And long story short, I was sitting on the bed one day and I just started screaming to my mom, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. I feel like I'm about to pass out. She panicked, she called the hospital. she called the ambulance, actually. Her and my brother after me were there, and ambulance came. I couldn't even walk downstairs to go to the ambulance. They actually had to bring a stretcher upstairs to my room and carry me downstairs. I'm not sure how they did it. I'm a pretty big guy, so I know they were struggling, but they stayed pretty professional about it, got me to the hospital. And from that point, from I want to say early of March 17 until, maybe telling you guys the wrong date, but maybe until about April of 2017, I have no idea what happened. The only thing I remember was waking up, and I just woke up to a room full of my family. It had to be up to about 50 different wires coming in and out of my chest and my body everywhere. And I mean, I had no idea what happened. I woke up, my mom told me I had been on the ECMO machine, which is basically a machine that's giving you assistance to breathe. I couldn't breathe on my own. I couldn't function on my own. Couldn't do anything without that machine. And if I'm wrong, if I'm not correct, there was a tube, there was maybe like a breathing tube that I had stuck in my throat. And it wouldn't come out, it was stuck. And from what I've heard is the doctors actually gave me a 33% chance of surviving. It got to the point where if the tube that I was in my throat wouldn't come out for another chance, then they would have to pull the plug. And immediately my mom said no. She went to the doctors and she basically started screaming at them, telling them, no, you're not going to give up. You're not going to give up. Do everything you can to save my son. And miraculously, the next time they tried, by the snap of my fingers, the tube popped out. And, I was, like I said, I was in and out of it. So I still don't know exactly what happened. I just know what people were telling me. So from that point, I gained a lot of water in my legs, called edema. I couldn't lift up my legs. My mom, my aunt, they had to basically come and carry my legs manually and move it around for me, because that's how hard basically I struggled to get around. And so just fast forward again, it got to the point where I was able to go home some points, but for 2 years of my life, I was in and out of the hospital for months at a time. My mom, she took out so much time from work, and she was actually sleeping in the hospital with me. I told her, I was begging her, she was missing work. She said she doesn't care. She's just gonna make sure I was okay. My youngest brother, he just graduated from school. He was actually coming and spending his entire day with me at the hospital. And my other brothers, they were in and out of town, but anytime they were in town or got off work, they would come straight to the hospital before they could go. A lot of my family were very supportive. A lot of my closest friends from college came down and visited me. So just going through all that stuff, I found out the biggest thing that helped me through it was the support from my family and friends. I couldn't do it by myself. A lot of prayer on my family side as well. And I just noticed that, without their prayer, without their support, I definitely wouldn't have made it. I was more focused on getting back to the life that I was living. I've always known myself just to be very positive and just, enjoying myself anytime I can. And all of a sudden, everything has been taken away from me. I'm restricted to the hospital. I didn't get any fresh air for who knows how long, maybe 4 or 5 months at a time. So it got to a point where I didn't know what I wanted to do anymore. I was having plans of stuff like building families and just getting back to my regular lifestyle, not even worrying about how sick I am. And obviously I was focused on the wrong kind of things. And so a year later goes by, I'm back in the hospital, and the doctors my heart's getting worse again. It's not to the point where I need a transplant yet, but so they tried a couple different machines. One was a balloon pump. They kind of inserted it inside my chest and kind of see if it could help like the pressure off my heart a little bit. I can't remember the technical name, but it was a fan. It's a fan device that they also put on top of my heart to try to help the circulation. Nothing worked. I also actually had a pacemaker inserted in the top of my heart as well, just in case my heart ever stopped, that pacemaker would be able to shock it back into place or shock it back to life. The doctor came in the room one day and said, you have 72 hours. If we don't see any progression, we're going to have to give you a LVAD. which is basically a left ventricular device. I didn't want to. I was begging and crying not to have that because at that point I was already on the list for a transplant. So I know once I got the call, I would be able to get surgery and move on with my life. If I get that LVAD machine in, that basically pauses your position on the transplant list for 3 months. Because once you have that put in, the recovery time is 3 months before they're allowed to put you back on the list. So obviously I knew that was going to take away time for me getting that call. So that was the main reason why I was depressed and I didn't want to get that done. So I got it. I had to get it done. I had no other choice at this point. If I wanted to live again, I had to get it. So, I got it done. And for the next year or so, I was walking around with a machine that was basically helping my heart function. And it wasn't a machine that you could hide or kind of, I think, I don't know why that was my main focus, was thinking, what are people going to think about me walking around, with this big device on my hip and, a tube connected all the way up through my stomach up to my heart. I didn't want people to judge me for how I looked and stuff. And also that was not the right, not the right way to go about things. But I mean, again, my family was there to support me and just taught me, what's more important, is your health or is what people think. And obviously it's my health. So I had that for a year. It was actually it was October of 2017 is when I got it done. And exactly 1 year later, I got the call to get a transplant. I was actually, it was on the Wednesday, if I remember. The Monday and Tuesday before, all of a sudden I hit a big depression stage again. I didn't get out of bed for 2 days. My mom came up to me, she's like, you need to get out of bed, you need to do something. I didn't want to hear anything. I just wanted to be by myself. And so that Wednesday I woke up and I said, okay, let me try to be positive about it. Let me just get up and go do something. So I went to the local gym and was on the bike riding around. I got a phone call from a number that I know is associated with Emory. So I immediately picked up the call and it was the heart transplant coordinator. I actually just met with her today. I had a biopsy this afternoon actually. So it's the same lady that called me that I met with this afternoon, and she just basically took me through the criteria. So yes, you need to come in immediately. We found a match for you. I just started screaming in the gym. I started crying. I said, give me 5 minutes. Let me go out to my car where I have a little bit more privacy. And I said, okay, just break it down for me. Exactly what are you talking about? She basically said, yeah, we found a match for you. You need to come in here immediately. And so I ran to the car as fast as I could, pretty much, got in the car and drove home. I wanted to go take a shower and pack a bag. Called my mom. My mom was the first person I called. She was actually home from work that day, luckily, and she was on the way to an event. She asked she's with my aunt actually. She asked my aunt to drop her off on the road, and she called the Uber to come back home. And as soon as I waited for her to come home, and as soon as we got home, I was ready. Of course, I was ready. As soon as she got there, we went to the hospital. More of my family met me at the hospital, went into prep, and I got to the hospital maybe about 1 o'clock that afternoon, and by 7 o'clock that evening, I was in surgery for my transplant. And like I said, that's the last thing I remember. I opened my eyes, and first thing I opened my eyes, first face I look at is my mom smiling with a big grin on her face, and saying, she said, thank God, and from there it was the recovery part. I couldn't move. It was a long process, actually, honestly, it wasn't a long process. The average time for recovery after a transplant is 21 days. For me, it only took 10 days. The doctors discharged me after 10 days, and they just said, basically, they were calling me the miracle child. So they've never seen a time where somebody has recovered as fast as you have from a transplant, and they were just shocked. I wanted to relate it to how active I've been in my past from playing a lot of sports. So they said that definitely had something to do with it. So now I have my transplant. I'm transitioning back into, regular life again, but opportunities were very slow. I wasn't sure what route I wanted to go in. I was coaching football for the last 8 years. So that's pretty much all I knew at the time. But my doctors, first thing they told me, they knew I was a coach. The first thing they told me was like, you can't coach right now. You have to give yourself some more time to recover. And I didn't want to hear that. So coaching is all I knew after college. So I was lost. So I sought out a therapist from Emory University as well, and I met with her twice a week. And I just basically just poured out my heart to her, just let her know exactly how I was feeling about getting back into the work life. Recovery wasn't going as fast as I wanted. I actually had to use a walker to get around. I couldn't walk on my own. So that was, it's a walker that has four legs on it. So I was walking back and forth to therapy, through the hospital, anywhere I had to go, I was on that. So again, the whole self concept of myself came to play again about, I know this is not me. I shouldn't be having to walk around with a walker and everything, but just got to remind myself how lucky I am to even be in this situation in the first place, rather than, anywhere else. So I took that in consideration, and the therapist really helped me out a lot. Family support again there, and what got through physical therapy, started to get my mobility back, and fast forward till today, completely made a 180-degree turn. I got back into graduate school. I'm about to graduate. I'm actually taking my last class now, so I'll be done in October, and then which is in the majors project management. So looking to take the certification test, hopefully by the end of this year or early next year, where I'll become a certified PMP, which is project management professional. And for that kind of field, it's kind of equivalent to a PhD in any other field, is what I feel like. So, that's going pretty well now. Started another career with, marketing and sales here in the Atlanta area, which is going pretty good now. And just so I like to just tell my story to a lot of people, just by, advising them that no matter how big your dreams are, for me, my dreams obviously were to go to the NFL, and that got taken away. So just want to be able to just present that idea to people as well, saying, so look, even though your dreams don't always fall exactly into place, you just have to be lucky to be alive. You have to be lucky to be able to wake up and see another 24 hours. You have to be grateful for what you're given, be grateful for any opportunity that you have. Just be grateful for being able to talk to other people and present what you've gone through to other people, and hopefully motivate them. A lot of them is like I always relate myself to football because that's what I've been involved with. There's millions of kids across the world, and every single one of them wants to be the next Peyton Manning or the next NFL star. And if you play football, there's a slight percentage. My coaches always used to mention this: the best players in your high school team are the ones who get a football scholarship, and then from there, that percentage even decreases. Once you go to college, all your teammates are all on scholarship, just how you were from high school. They were all the best player on the high school team. And now all those best players in the high school team come to a college team. And to go from the college team to the NFL, you got to be in that top percentage of your college team. So the higher and higher you go in each level, that percentage decreases. So you could say you're going to go to the NFL, but there's a slight chance that you actually will. So just open up people's minds and ears so that just look, there's a slight chance your dreams are going to be made. You're going to go pro. So you always have to have a backup plan. And I didn't have a backup plan until I was put in that position. So my advice to a lot of people now is make sure you have that backup plan, because you never know what's going to happen. You never know what your future holds. All I know from now is, for me, is what I'm going to make out of my situation. I don't like to dwell on the past. And while I was trying to get back on my feet, I always used to say, because I had surgery. So that's why I'm in this position now. But I feel like I'm in a position now where I can't use that as an excuse anymore. So I look past that. I always try to say, okay, I have to turn what I went through and just turn it around for the future and for the better. Don't always dwell on the past. So like I said, it's been a long journey for me. I'm happy to where I am now. I know I'm still far of reaching my potential and my goals. And I'm glad that I know this is the first step for me as far as, speaking engagements, as far as trying to just open up to people and just let them know what I went through, and hopefully I can motivate them moving forward.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I am going to apologize. I know we've got some thumbs up and some applauses. I want you to keep yourself on mute, but we are going to open up for questions. So if you want to type a question in the chat box, please take a minute to do that now. And I am going to take a minute to apologize and just say, before we start our speaking, I usually check with the speaker to make sure I pronounce their name correctly. And I did not get a chance to do that with you today. So will you just tell us how to pronounce your name correctly so nobody messes it up?
My name is Etta. I know Etta. It's a Nigerian name. My family, we're Nigerian. So a lot of people Americanize my name and say Etta, because
Right.
Etta was this back, I can't even remember how long ago. Etta's is a female name here in America. So that's why a lot of people tend to say Etta. It's a lot easier to pronounce, but the Nigerian way to say it is Etta.
Etta.
Etta Tawo.
I love that. Etta. I'm so glad I asked, because I definitely don't want to call you something other than your name, for sure. So thank you so much. And we're going to open up for questions. And I, of course, have a few questions myself. And I want to thank you for being a mentor and going through the training. And I was curious to know, I know you said you did have a mentor. At what point on that process did you get a mentor? Did you have the LVAD? Were you like right before transplant? I was just curious to know what part of your what stage you ended up getting a mentor.
This was right before I got the LVAD. I didn't even know at the time that I wanted a mentor. My doctors, they mentioned it to me, and I was kind of backing away from the idea at first because I didn't want anybody else to come in. I was being, like I said, I was being stubborn at the beginning. I didn't want anybody else to kind of tell me how I need to handle my own stress. But I'm glad I got talked into it. I changed my mind. And so it was pretty much right before I got my LVAD, because I just remember keeping in contact with him for the majority of time before my transplant surgery.
And then do you still keep in touch with him?
I do. Once I got out of my surgery, we talked maybe every couple of weeks. And we don't keep in contact as much anymore, but I'll say about once a month or so, we'll talk. He actually likes to, every once in a while, he'll send me a text, and he'll have a lot of other heart transplant recipients meet up for lunch, in the local Atlanta area, and everybody will just kind of give their summary or background of what what's currently going on in their lives. So, I really do appreciate that, because a lot of people you can relate to as well, just kind of meeting up together at once.
So great. And I know that you are now a trained mentor, so I always do my little plug of, if you're looking for a mentor or you want to be trained, you can reach out to me after the presentation or through our website. I also wanted to ask you, I know you talked a little bit about some advice, and you definitely talked a lot about your mom and your family and your friends being a big supporter. So I have two questions about that. My one is, do you have like a mantra or like a life saying? I know you want everybody to be prepared, but do you have something else that kind of you said to yourself in your head when you reach a hard spot, or anything like that you can share?
Yeah, the quote I kind of refer back to now is, first and foremost, is always just prayer for me. My family, we're big on prayer and just, looking for faith from God. So, prayer is always number one. And secondly, I just try to come up with like a slogan, and it's called Transplant with a Plan. So it just basically means, even though I had a transplant, that shouldn't be the end of your journey. You know, you have a transplant now. Now you have to back it up with a plan. You know, what's your plan as far as taking the next step after you receive your transplant?
Very good. And then I had a question about your support and your mom. Sounds like you had a lot of support throughout the whole process, and that's always amazing. Did you have anybody surprising come out and support you? Like maybe somebody you were not expecting? We all expect our family or our mom maybe
Right.
to support us, but.
Yes, a couple of my friends, you know, some of my closest friends from college, you know, they were actually living, they were living maybe 2 to 3 hours away, you know, from Atlanta at the time. But that was probably the most surprising for me, is that they came down a couple times and saw me while I was in the hospital. One of them actually brought his baby with him and his wife, and they came down and saw me. So that was pretty much shocking for me. I don't know if they called me, they're coming, or if I think they actually told my brother that they were coming, and then my brother told me, because, you know, I didn't have access to my phone. But that was probably the most powerful thing for me, outside of my family, of course, was that they took time, you know, and it wasn't just, you know, a 30-minute ride. It's a few-hour drive that they took out of the day, you know, to Atlanta and back, you know, just to come and check on me and make sure I was doing okay. And, you know, just to add on to that, you know, I think a lot of the recovery that you have is having that positivity as far as, okay, you know, people care about you from far, far away. So when they came down, you know, it kind of put a lot of joy into my heart. You know, a biggest recovery factor that I had before I had my surgery was the doctors always told me, you know, a lot of your recovery has to do with your mind state. You know, are you negative? Are you positive? You don't want to have any negative stress, because that could affect your condition as well. So I struggled a lot with keeping, you know, my stress at a positive level, you know, because like I said, I was always dwelling on where I used to be, you know, what I wanted for myself, and that impacted me negatively, you know. So I had to find different ways to turn that negative, you know, aspect into positivity. And so just having those people come down and support definitely helped, you know, turn it around for me.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Akai, nobody put any questions in the chat. So we're going to stop the recording now. And I just want to thank you again for volunteering to speak and giving us your time this evening. And we look forward to having your presentation on the website soon. And thank